You can recognize a Mike De Leon shot by the way the room breathes. He turns interiors into tribunals, rituals into cinema, and melodrama into a scalpel. Across genres, gothic horror, social satire, political melodrama, he's been quietly one of the Philippines' sharpest and most exacting filmmakers. Mike De Leon was born Miguel Pamintuan De Leon in 1947 into a family already embedded in Philippine cinema. He's the grandson of LVN matriarch Narcisa Doña Sisang De Leon. He studied at Ateneo before taking up art history in Germany. That formal sensibility and this studio background would shape his exacting visual craft. Before directing, De Leon worked behind the camera, notably as cinematographer in Lino Broca's Manila in the Claws of Light. That film's hard, urban, neo-noir look was part of the apprenticeship that would inform his later directorial choices. From his debut in Itim to the satirical chaos of Kakabakabakaba to the suffocating domestic terror of Kisap Mata and the political allegory of Batch 81, De Leon's filmography is small but uncompromising. To understand his craft, we need to take it apart piece by piece, from story to music. If there's one thing that sets Mike De Leon apart, it's that his stories are never just stories. They're a mirror reflecting the social and political realities of the Philippines. De Leon doesn't shy away from controversy. In Citizen Jake, his first film after nearly 2 decades of silence, he dives headfirst into the messy intersections of politics, journalism, and personal morality. It's not just a plot about a reporter investigating a crime. It's a confrontation with the legacy of the Marcos regime, the role of social media in public discourse, and the uncomfortable truths that come with privilege. But political engagement is only one layer of his storytelling. Beneath the social commentary lies an unflinching examination of human nature. Kisap Mata, for instance, isn't just about a domineering father. It's about control, trauma, and the suffocating grip of power within a family. The film's horror doesn't come from ghosts or monsters, but from the chilling realism of abuse and manipulation. De Leon also loves to question what we think we know. In Bayani Third World, he dismantles the idea of historical heroism through a meta-narrative that is part investigation, part self-reflection. Instead of giving us answers about Jose Rizal, he leaves us with questions about history, memory, and the narratives we choose to believe. This approach makes him not only a storyteller, but an auteur with a clear cinematic philosophy. His films resist easy categorization, blending elements of melodrama, horror, and social realism into something uniquely his own. And he doesn't spoon-feed his audience. Instead, he challenges them to engage, to think critically, and sometimes to sit in discomfort. The impact of this kind of storytelling has been immense. De Leon's work has inspired generations of Filipino filmmakers to take risks, both in subject matter and in form. His films have been screened internationally, been preserved and restored, and studied for their craftsmanship and political significance. At its core, Mike De Leon's storytelling is a fusion of social commentary, psychological insight, and cinematic precision. It's bold, it's layered, and it refuses to look away from the truths, however inconvenient they reveal. If Mike De Leon's stories are razor-sharp in vision, his productions are equally meticulous in execution. He is, by all accounts, a perfectionist, often wearing multiple hats as writer, director, producer, and even cinematographer when necessary. This hands-on approach ensures that his creative vision remains uncompromised from page to screen. From the earliest days of his career, De Leon demonstrated an almost obsessive attention to detail. On set, he's known for crafting environments that feel lived in, even if the audience only glimpses them for a few seconds. Props aren't just decorative, they're part of the storytelling, imbued with context and meaning. His background as the grandson of LVN Pictures founder Narcisa De Leon gave him early access to the machinery of filmmaking. But his reputation wasn't inherited, it was earned. Working first as a cinematographer and producer, he gained an intimate understanding of the technical and logistical demands of production. By the time he transitioned into directing, he had already mastered the language of film from multiple perspectives. De Leon's productions also stand out for their controlled pacing and atmosphere. He prefers fewer, more deliberate setups rather than overshooting coverage. This precision often results in longer preparation times, but the payoff is a film where every frame feels intentional. Behind the scenes footage reveals a director who is not afraid to push his crew for that perfect shot. Whether it's a meticulously timed dolly move or a subtle shift in lighting. And when it comes to collaboration, De Leon surrounds himself with talent who share his uncompromising standards. Longtime collaborators like cinematographer Rodi Lacap and production designer Cesar Hernando brought their visions to life with equal care and artistry. These partnerships help create a distinct visual and tonal identity across his body of work. In the end, Mike De Leon's production style is about control, not in a stifling sense but in the pursuit of cohesion. Every decision from set design to shooting schedule is aligned with the story's emotional core. It's the kind of precision that leaves no room for accidents, but plenty of room for meaning. If storytelling is the soul of Mike De Leon's work and production is its backbone, then color is the film's emotional undercurrent, often subtle, sometimes striking, but always deliberate. De Leon treats color not as a mere decoration, but as a storytelling device in its own right. In his earlier works like Itim, he often leaned toward muted and somber palette. These tones, paired with shadows and darkness, create an oppressive, moody environment that mirrors the characters' inner struggles. Darkness isn't just a lack of light in De Leon's films, it's a visual character, shaping the audience's sense of dread and anticipation. He's also not afraid to experiment. De Leon's background in film processing gave him the technical know-how to manipulate color in unconventional ways. For a team, he used techniques like double exposing negatives in post-production, layering images to produce haunting, dreamlike visuals. This kind of experimentation pushes beyond realism, making color part of the psychological texture of the film. Color for De Leon is inseparable from narrative rhythm. In Batch 81, for example, the restored version underwent color grading under his careful supervision, not to make it modern, but to preserve the exact emotional beats he intended decades ago. Every shade and hue works in concert with the story's tone, ensuring that the film's visual identity remains intact across generations. And while De Leon doesn't often use color coding in a literal character-specific way, his films still show a deep understanding of color theory. The palette he chooses subtly reflect emotional states. Cooler, desaturated tones for alienation or moral ambiguity, warmer tones for fleeting moments of hope and connection. De Leon's approach to color is about control and intention. Whether it's the shadowy blues and grays of a theme or the raw, faded grit of Batch 81, every choice reinforces the mood, supports the narrative, and draws the audience deeper into his cinematic world. Lighting is the architecture in Mike De Leon's work, the element that sculpts depth, defines texture, and guides the audience's gaze. De Leon approaches lighting with a precision that borders on the obsessive. Every shot is meticulously planned, often storyboarded in advance, so that the lighting isn't just a technical necessity but a deliberate creative choice. This level of detail can mean long waiting time for actors on set, but the payoff is undeniable, a carefully crafted atmosphere that feels intentional in every frame. In Itim, for instance, De Leon used minimal lighting on set, relying heavily on shadows and underexposed spaces to create a sense of confinement and mystery. According to the Festival de Cannes, the film was even post-flashed 100%, a technique that involves exposing the film to light before development to soften contrast and flatten the image, giving it a haunting, almost ethereal quality. This isn't just aesthetic indulgence, it's storytelling. De Leon uses light and darkness as narrative tools. Techniques such as chiaroscuro, where stark contrasts between light and shadow dominate the frame, serve to heighten tension and give scenes a sculptural, painterly quality. Light becomes a way to conceal as much as reveal, pulling the viewers into the film's psychological space. His deep technical knowledge, honed from years of experimenting with film processing, allows him to understand not just how lights behave on set, but how it will interact with the film stock, lenses, and post production treatments. That means the mood he envisions while planning is often the mood the audience experiences on screen, no matter how complex the process to achieve it. For De Leon, lighting is never incidental. It is mood, it is texture, and when done right, it becomes an invisible yet palpable presence in the story, shaping the way we feel without us even realizing it. Cinematography is the execution of Mike De Leon's vision, the movement, framing, and visual rhythm that gives his film their distinctive signature. De Leon's cinematography is marked by innovation and a fearless willingness to experiment. His technical mastery can be traced back to his time at the LVN laboratory, where he explored advanced film processing techniques like push and pull development, giving him precise control over texture, contrast, and grain. This foundation in the mechanics of film allowed him to manipulate the medium as a painter might manipulate pigment, making choices not only for aesthetic beauty, but for narrative impact. Even in an industry constrained by budget and resources, De Leon pushed boundaries. He was among the first in the Philippines to experiment with computer graphics animation in 1988 during his work in advertising, a sign of his openness to new tools and technologies. His approach to genre was equally adventurous, blending horror, domestic drama, political critique, and even elements of documentary into hybrid forms that defy easy categorization. Visually, his work has a deliberate and often haunting quality. In a theme, the camera seems to breathe with the characters, lingering in close ups to capture psychological shifts or gliding through spaces to evoke an almost ghostly perspective. The Gothic atmosphere is not just a product of lighting, but of framing, pacing, and spatial composition. A collaboration between camera and narrative that deepens the audience's immersion. De Leon's attention to detail is uncompromising. Set design, costume, blocking, all are integrated into the cinematographic plan, ensuring that every object in the frame has a purpose. His visuals are never decorative, they're narrative devices, often loaded with symbolic meaning. Through his precision, his films become both political texts and aesthetic experiences. His influence on Philippine cinema is profound. As a pioneering filmmaker, he has inspired generations to see cinematography not just as an act of recording, but as an act of authorship, where the camera does more than observe. It comments, critiques, and provokes. Beyond his filmography, his preservation work at LVN Pictures has helped secure the visual history of Philippine cinema for future storytellers, ensuring that the language of films remains both remembered and evolving. In De Leon's hands, cinematography becomes more than a craft. It is a living, thinking presence, one that challenges genre conventions, confronts uncomfortable truths, and leaves images etched in memory long after the screen fades to black. If cinematography gives Mike De Leon's films their visual vocabulary, editing determines how those images speak. When they whisper, when they cut deep, and when they leave the audience in deliberate silence. For De Leon, editing is not simply a post production step, it is a core storytelling tool. His approach is deeply story centric, with every cut serving the emotional and narrative flow rather than stylistic flourish for its own sake. The rhythm of his edits reflects the inner life of the story, lingering when a moment needs to breathe, accelerating when tension tightens, and knowing precisely when to withhold an image to provoke thought. De Leon's commitment to editing extends far beyond his films. He even applied a cinematic approach to his book Last Look Back, structuring it as though it were a film, sequencing ideas, pacing reveals, and building thematic arcs. In working on the book, he taught himself Adobe InDesign and experimented with rudimentary layouts, showing the same meticulous care for arrangement and flow as he would in the editing suite. Collaboration is at the heart of his process. De Leon has worked closely with editors, designers, and scholars, valuing their input as a part of the creative dialogue. Whether in film or print, he is known for exploring multiple versions of a sequence, testing how subtle changes in order or timing affect the overall impact. This iterative method reflects a willingness to challenge his instincts in search of the most resonant outcome. Ultimately, Mike De Leon's editing style is an extension of his authorship, meticulous, collaborative, and relentlessly focused on the integrity of the narrative. In his hands, editing becomes a quiet form of authorship, shaping not just the sequence of events, but the emotional architecture of the entire work. If editing determines the rhythm of Mike De Leon's films, sound design and music give them their emotional temperature. He approaches the sonic landscape with the same meticulousness as his images, ensuring that every auditory choice amplifies narrative meaning. According to the Animo repository, De Leon's orchestration of music, foley, and dialogue results in a cinematic experience where sound is not merely supportive, but integral to storytelling. One of his signature strengths is amplifying emotions through carefully curated sonic cues. Whether it's the hushed attention of an argument, the brittle crackle of a radio, or a piece of music swelling at the exact emotional beat, his soundscapes pull the audience into the scene's atmosphere. The effect is both immersive and lasting. Moments lodge themselves in the viewer's memory not only because of what was seen, but because of what was heard. De Leon is equally adept at balancing sound elements, weighing the relationship between dialogue, sound effects, and music. At times, he deliberately subverts the prevailing industry norms, such as prioritizing the clarity and emotional resonance of dialogue over other audio layers, a choice that subtly shifts the viewer's attention toward human interaction. In his horror film Itim, for example, sparse sound effect and minimalistic music create a lingering unease, proving that silence and restraint can be more unsettling than a full-blown score. His dedication to sonic precision extends beyond original productions. In his restoration work, such as the revival of Kisap Mata, he has gone to lengths to restore ambient textures, car noises, environmental hums that earlier mixing practices had diminished. The result is a richer, more authentic soundscape that aligns with his original vision while making it accessible for contemporary audiences. This commitment to sound reflects what Filmmaker magazine calls his artful orchestration of all cinematic elements. Music, sound effects, and cinematography are not isolated tools in De Leon's work. They are threads of the same fabric, interwoven to create tone, texture, and meaning. His blending of genres, melodrama, crime, horror, is heightened by his sound design choices, often departing from conventional cues to surprise, unsettle, or deepen the audience's engagement. As we've seen, Mike De Leon's artistry is never confined to one aspect of filmmaking. His stories are told not just through the frame, but through the cut, the color palette, the texture of sound, and the silences between lines. His cinema thrives in the interplay of those elements, each decision deliberate, each choice in service of narrative integrity. In an era when speed and spectacle often overshadow craft, De Leon's body of work stands as a reminder. Filmmaking is a conversation between what is seen, what is heard, and what lingers long after the credits roll.
Ako si Jake Herrera, 34 years old, journalist.
Thank you so much for watching the video. If you enjoyed this video and want to help me create more deep dives into Philippine cinema, you can now join my YouTube membership for as low as 39 pesos a month. Yes, Philippine peso. It's a small way to support the channel, but it makes a huge difference for me to keep telling these stories. For those watching outside the Philippines, you can check the equivalent in your currency right on the join page. Every member helps keep the lights on for more films, more stories, and more conversations. Thank you so much for your support, and I'll see you on the next video.